Okay, we're going to start in just a second. Um, Laura, how's my audio?
Perfect.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Hello, and welcome to this Leading the Conversation webinar from NAMI, Northern Illinois. NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. My name is Warren Boykin, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker on the important topic of youth suicide prevention, Laura Kane. Laura is the author of the book Lost to Darkness, Enlightened by Grace, and is also a board member of NAMI Northern Illinois. Laura is the founder of Marshmallow's Hope nonprofit organization and is the author of Zachary's Parent Protection Act, which was recently passed by the Illinois General Assembly. Now, just a little bit of an introduction of Laura. Laura Kane started Marshmallow's Hope in memory of her son, Zachary Ryan Burkholz, a 14-year-old Harlem High School freshman who died by suicide in 2018. Sadly, Laura was unaware that her child was suffering in silence. Depression and suicide were foreign topics to her until the tragedy of these silent killers affected her in the worst way. Laura's goal is that this organization will aid hurting children like Zachary, and his story will continue to bring positivity to our community through his mother's perseverance. Her promise to the community, and especially to all the mothers out there who are missing their babies, is that she won't stop fighting this battle. The love for her children is what drives her. Welcome, Laura Kane.
Thank you very much, Warren. That was a beautiful introduction. And thank you, NAMI Northern Illinois, for allowing me to talk about this important topic. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right to my presentation. One moment. Okay. All right, so as Warren stated, I am Laura Kane, founder and executive director of Marshmallow's Hope. Today, I'm going to take you through my personal story, how the organization came to, and then talk to you about the warning signs that are easily confused for normal teenage angst. This is a difficult topic to listen to, so it could be triggering. It does touch on the subject of teen suicide. So again, it may be a triggering subject for you, but here we go. So who am I? I'm a horse mom and a wife. I have 3 amazing stepkids, Anthony, Haley, and Liam. That's my Rottweiler Oso because he's oh so adorable. And can you guys believe it? I'm a grandma. So the little boy in the green, his name is Adrian Zachary, and the little boy in the teddy bear suit is Sebastian Zachariah, both of my grandbabies. But my life wasn't always like this. For over a decade, I was a single mother. These are my 3 amazing kids. Caitlin is my oldest, Zachary is my middle son, and Lincoln is my youngest. I'm going to go ahead and show you a video to kind of give you an idea that will lead up to the conversation, but want to give you that visualization of what our life was like.
Where you stand, silent in the trees, silent in the trees. Why won't you speak where I happen to be? Silent in the trees, standing cowardly. I can feel your breath. I can feel my death. I want to know you. I want to see. I want to say hello. 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 Oh. Hello. I know where you stand, silent in the tree, and that's where I am, silent in the tree. Why won't you speak where I happen to be? Silent in the tree, standing cowardly. I can feel your breath. I can feel my death. I want to know you. I want to see. I want to
I still have the puppet show. We still watch it. And I got a GameCube. And I have a TV. And
Bye, I love you.
bye.
Hey, your shoes on tight. On September 16th, 2018, it was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. As a single mother, I had just achieved the American dream of owning my own home on a 5-acre farm where I thought that I would raise my children and we would have our horse in our backyard. Unfortunately, while I was at the farm moving forward with the purchase, that day became my worst nightmare when my son Zachary ended his own life by suicide. Up to that point, words like mental illness, depression, and suicide were unfamiliar to me. And so I had to take a good look at what went wrong. And what I have found in trying to educate myself on this topic is that suicide often derives from an untreated mental illness. Now, mental illness can look like many different things, but the most common things are depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder, and trauma, or from trauma, I'm sorry. I've also learned that 1 in 5 of us live with a mental illness. So when you're walking around and you take a look at a group of people, within that group, 1 in 5 is most likely with a mental health condition. Since losing my son, I, for one, now live with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. I also had to make a choice. I could go one way and give up, or I could go the other way and keep going. And trust me when I tell you that everything in me wanted to give up, but I knew that I still had 2 surviving children that needed me. And so I didn't really have a choice. I didn't have an option. And I knew I had to keep going. I've learned since by returning to school to obtain a master's in social work and educate myself as much as possible that education is key to prevention. During COVID, I started to hear about more youth suicides, and I felt very compelled. I needed to drive change. I needed to make a difference. I didn't want any other families to have to go through this. So I became a published author of Lost to Darkness, Enlightened by Grace. And my hope through this book is that I could share my ugly story and bring hope to people in a really hopeless time. I then took my son's social media and began posting motivational messages, encouraging kids to please not give up, to keep living. And the message that I wanted to drive was that suicide is not an option. However, what I never imagined was that those kids would start sliding up on my stories and sharing their own thoughts of suicide with me and their own battles and struggles with depression. And I then took it a step further and I started reaching out to parents, hey, I've been talking to your child and this is what's happening. They're struggling. Parents would start asking me, well, do you have any resources and any information of where I could take my kid? And organically, I just started picking up kids, taking them out one-on-one, hanging out with them, going bowling, going out to lunch, and doing different things like that. When I saw that was creating a really positive impact in our community, I thought, you know what, why not make it a thing? And that's how Marshmallow's Hope was born. So through Marshmallow's Hope, we are the voice for those who feel that they don't have one. We believe in the power of compassion, connection, and hope will aid in the creation of bonds that will empower those we serve to build trust, overcome challenges, and create pathways to perseverance. We aim for a unifying approach on prioritizing mental health, delivering education, and eradicating cultural stigmas. We strive to prevent suicide by eliminating access barriers to care, facilitating mentorship programs, and connecting our clients to a comprehensive offering of support groups through our community partners, such as NAMI Northern Illinois, and providing graceful post-vention support, accepting those on their path to resilience. Our main program of the organization is called Hero Mentors. And so that is where we pair a child who is struggling with a mental emotional illness with a mentor. The mentors are called heroes, and we thought that the HERO acronym would better serve or best describe our program by helping those who, like Zachary, may be suffering in silence, encouraging them to set attainable mental health goals, reach those goals by providing them with mental health treatment, and then overcome their thoughts of suicide and perseverance, create perseverance and resilience. We thought that the most appropriate name for the kids in our program are the Zacharys of the world, the Zows. So the services that we offer through Marshmallow's Hope for both Hero Mentors and Zows, as well as suicide survivor families, is our priority is to eliminate access barriers to care by providing free counseling services. So all of our services are available to kids 9 to 19 who are struggling with a mental emotional illness such as depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations, self-harming, and those types of things. We don't bill insurance. We raise all of the funds to be able to cover the cost of counseling, as we want to eliminate that barrier, financial barrier for families, to ensure that these kids are receiving the treatment that they deserve. We also promote self-esteem by assisting with school clothes, haircuts, and the cost of dental braces through our HERO program. The very first kid I ever mentored, when I asked him, why do you want to die? He literally told me, my haircut isn't good enough. My mom can't afford to buy name brand clothes, and I get made fun of for having crooked teeth. And so as an adult, I immediately was like, whoa, wait a minute, like that's not worth dying over. However, I realized that in teenagehood, that pain is very, very real, and self-esteem is everything. Self-appearance is everything to uplift that self-esteem for a child. And so that's why we created that portion of our program, to be able to uplift them and teach them that, yes, those material things are not worth taking your life, but if we can create that positivity by uplifting them, then we will. We also have an array of support groups for our participants and suicide survivor families through community partners. We refer all of our participants to our peer-led support groups through NAMI Northern Illinois. And then through Marshmallow's Hope, we actually offer a therapist-led support group for high school age teens, as well as a therapist-led support group for suicide survivor families. Everything that we do, we strive to prevent suicide. However, we realize that we're not going to be able to prevent all. So we also offer funeral donations to families that need them. We hate hearing of any families losing a loved one to suicide. However, we do offer the support during that traumatic time. And we offer free grief counseling services to suicide survivors. Again, we want to eliminate that access barrier to care for them. Now, Marshmallow's Hope is all about creating protective factors. Our HERO program aids with a protective factor, which a protective factor is something that may keep someone who is in that darkness from actually ending their own life. And so what's great about our HERO mentor program is that we target at-risk adult populations such as service members, first responders, and veterans, because we realize that due to the stigma that surrounds mental illness, these adult populations are not going to reach out for help, or they're less likely to reach out for help. So they are very high risk for suicide. But what we do is we pair these adults in these populations with our ZOUs, with the kids who we knowingly are struggling. And by doing so, we're giving that adult that protective factor, so that if they are in that darkness, they'll have a child who they know is struggling and looking up to them, which will actually keep them from ending their own life. The other thing that we do is we create community engagement projects, as those also provide or give the kids in our program a protective factor. And this year we created Project 4114 in memory of Caden Fritz, which was a Byron High School student who also ended his life by suicide, as well as my son Zachary. And watch this next video. It'll explain what the project is all about.
I lost my 14-year-old son to suicide in 2018. Never in a billion years imagined, moving forward with the pain. Unfortunately, my 11-year-old son, both of my children found their brother. We went on a mission trip. He was really struggling with his own mental health. And just watching him build this house, being on top of the roof, putting shingles down, I really saw how empowering that was for him and his own mental health.
There you go! Woo! That's it right there!
And that was like the point where, it was put in my heart, like, we need to do this with the Marshmallow's Hope kids. We have 85 kids in our group. Our hope was that we would take all the kids in our program, have them be part of this to uplift their own self-esteem and give them a purpose to keep going. So essentially, we're using the home as a metaphor, right? Oftentimes these kids feel like they're broken. The home that we are receiving and are grateful for is broken, but essentially these kids are gonna utilize that, put it back together, and then at the end, when the house is put back together and beautiful, that's gonna rebuild their own self-esteem. Once the house is finished, we're gonna give the home to a veteran in need. Veterans are a high-risk adult population for suicide, and our goal is to bless somebody in a huge way and prevent that from happening. Turn the house over to the veteran by Veterans Day. We want to bless them on Veterans Day for the amazing sacrifices that they've made for our country. Through this, people can see, you know, the condition of the house, how it started, and how as a community we've come together and made it amazing. Because when this is done, it won't look like this. It's going to be incredible. We've committed to try to attempt to do at least one a year. And it's also empowering the community and uplifting the community. Instead of having an empty, abandoned eyesore, now we're going to have somebody that's, you know, living in the home, being able to do this for somebody in honor of my child. Like it was something I never would have envisioned. Project 4114 is bigger than me. It's bigger than Marshmallow's Hope. It is a community engagement project to show people that we can all come together and bless an individual in a major way. No matter how hard things get, no matter how bad things are, you can always keep going and it will get better. Your life matters. You're not alone, and no matter what pain you may be struggling with in that current moment, you can get through it.
So in everything that I do since this tragedy occurred in my life, my goal is to stop suicide from happening. Realistically, I realize that I'm not going to be able to stop every single suicide, but even if just one, even if somebody hears my story and is able to think twice and reach out for help, then it's worth it to me. But how do we come together as a community to help prevent suicides or help stop suicides? Well, first, we need to touch on the subject of stigma. So watch this next video to explain how we can come together, and you can join me in the movement of breaking this stigma.
Suicide is a result of untreated mental illness, and it is preventable. Mental illness, also called mental health disorders, refers to a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental illness include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. Mental illness is a taboo topic amongst people, and it is rarely talked about. It has a huge stigma that makes people ashamed of reaching out for fear of being looked at as crazy or unfit. As a society, we have given mental illness a negative reputation of weakness or something that you should keep to yourself, but it is time that we break the stigma. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 5 live with a mental illness. So how do we break the stigma? Educate yourself about mental illness, as well as help educate others. Show support to friends and family members who may be living with a mental illness. Seek help, and do not be ashamed. Talk about it. We need to normalize talking about mental illness and prioritize taking care of our mental health. Break the stigma. You are not alone. It's okay to not be okay. You're human.
Break the stigma.
1 in 5.
1 in 5.
Break the stigma.
1 in 5.
Break the stigma.
Break the stigma.
You are not alone.
So, join me in the movement to break the stigma against mental illness. Let's normalize talking about mental health. Let's break the stigma and contribute to this mental health movement by talking about it, encouraging equality for physical and mental illness. Choose empowerment over shame. Let's come together in this movement and be the voice for people like Zachary who felt that they didn't have a voice and suicide was their only option. Break the stigma. You are not alone.
You are not alone.
Break the
Stigma.
You are not alone. You are not alone.
You're not alone.
Break the stigma.
Even my parents, Charlie Dog, all the way from Florida, is telling you to break the stigma. So what happens if we don't break the stigma? Well, stigma transformation or transforms into a triangle, like it manifests into 3 different levels. So there's the individual level, the community level, and then the institutional level. Individual stigma hinders someone from seeking help by invalidating personal experiences and internalizing feelings. So essentially, if we don't break the stigma, we're just pressuring people to suffer in silence. Communal stigma hinders the visibility of resources and perpetuates the silence. How many of you had heard of Marshmallow's Hope before today? Oftentimes, when I ask that question, a lot of people have not heard of us, and that is due to the stigma because this subject has a hush-hush mentality, and so the people who are struggling don't even know that resources like ours exist because we just don't talk about it, right? And then the institutional stigma, so it's like at the big brother level or at the government level, stigma shapes the prioritization, institutional stigma, shapes the prioritization of resources and validation of experiences. So for example, as a nonprofit organization, we heavily rely on donations and grant funding to be able to service our community. And when you take a look at like the grants that are out there, things that are out there, our society is getting a little bit better by it, but there's not a lot out there because again, the prioritization is not looked at as what it truly is. It's a crisis currently. And again, our society is getting better, but we need to come together to help break the stigma and stop encouraging and shoving people to suffer in silence. We need to understand that mental health is just as important as physical health. If I were to slip and fall in this room and break my leg, people would most likely call 911. I would get taken to the hospital, have a cast put on my leg. And then once that cast came off, if my leg did not properly heal, then I would go to physical therapy to strengthen that bone back up. So why is it not okay for us to do that for our mental health? When our mind is not well, when we're feeling depressive thoughts or anxious thoughts, why isn't it okay to go to the hospital and get the treatment? And then if we need additional treatment, why is it so taboo for us to seek therapy services and go, receive mental health counseling support? Well, I'm here to tell you, we are human. And at some point in our lives, we need that additional support. So we need to understand that mental health is just as important, if not more important than physical health, right? But we need to equalize that. Now, so I'm not going to talk too much about cyberbullying, but what I will say about cyberbullying is that it is the number one reason why kids are dying by suicide. Cyberbullying, it's, literally these kids get online, they tease each other, gossip each other, threaten each other, spread rumors online. When I was younger and the school bell rang at 3:00, I was able to go home and disconnect from my relationships at school, right? Unless like I got to go outside, I got to ride my bicycle. Well, in today's society, kids, they go home, but they're still connected to all of their peers at school through social media. And oftentimes they are, getting harassed. So all I'm here to say is that if you are a part of cyberbullying, please don't do it. If you see that somebody is being bullied, please report it. And please be that light in somebody else's darkness, because you may actually save a life. It is okay to ask for help. We have to normalize, again, talking about mental health. And know that it is okay to ask for help. But how do you know if you need help, or how do you know if your peers need help or your children need help? Well, I'm going to take you through the signs that are very easily confused as normal teenage angst. And I will remind you that I was that mom that thought my son was just being a normal teenager. But once I went back to school and began to educate myself, I realized that all of the red flag signs I can check off. So let's go through them. Withdrawn. They become withdrawn from their friends and family, isolating in their bedroom and not doing the activities they normally would enjoy. Now, I'm not saying that every teenager that goes into their bedroom is suicidal or contemplating suicide. What I am saying is that when they withdraw from the activities that they enjoy, they don't want to hang out with their friends, they don't want to participate in sports, and they just want to be alone, then that is a red flag sign, and it's time to ask for help. Changes in sleep patterns, they either sleep too much or not enough, or they're restless. So my son Zachary was up all hours of the night, and I always thought it was because he wanted to play video games and hang out with his friends on social media in the middle of the night. But I would get up in the middle of the night and tell him, like, hey, you have school in the morning, you need to go to sleep. And he would say to me, it's not that I don't want to go to sleep, it's just that I can't sleep. His mind was restless all the time. But again, I thought, he was just being a teenager and staying up playing video games. Reckless behavior, they act in ways that could be dangerous and seem careless about consequences. My son Zach was 14. He didn't have a driver's license. One day I came home from work and I just had this feeling that he had taken one of our cars. Well, later on that day, I found out that he took our car and his 7-year-old brother and drove to McDonald's, which was you had to cross to get to McDonald's, a very, very busy intersection. So it was reckless and he was careless about any of those consequences. But again, I attributed his behavior to he's a teenager, like this is normal. Again, it's not. Personality changes, they behave aggressively or become easily angered or irritated by others. Well, as you saw in the videos, my son Zach always had a smile on his face. He was truly the most loving kid and fun. But the last day that he was alive, it was like a fuse had switched, or like a switch had flipped in him. And he was very angry that day. And again, I attributed to hormonal changes, oh, he's just going through something. But unfortunately, that is a red flag sign. Substance abuse, drinking alcohol, or using other drugs. Now, we're not saying that, a teenager who just happens to go and try marijuana or alcohol one time, that's a cause for concern. It could be, right? And we definitely don't condone it. But what I'm talking about is a youth who is constantly wanting to numb themselves or numb the pain that they're feeling. They want to smoke pot all day from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to sleep. That's all that they can think about. Or they want to utilize other substances or alcohol to do that. Again, they do this to numb the pain. They can't express themselves, and that's a cry out for help. Physical pain, they complain about physical symptoms such as stomach aches or headaches. Now, I always thought that this was true for smaller aged kids when they couldn't express themselves or their feelings. However, when you have severe mental
I apologize if we're having some temporary technical difficulty. We'll get back to Laura's program in just one moment. Hold on. Bear with us. Stand by. We're going to end the meeting, restart it. Apologies. You may not have to exit, but we are going to try and restart the meeting.